I tell people all the time, far worse than having to a lot better men. It's been 20 years and I've evolved to where I don't have no bitterness for nobody. Yeah, at the county building, yep.
What are we doing here?
Meeting with Prosecutor Indianapolis, Ryan Mears. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing
Wish
good.
we didn't have
Good to
these
meet
masks on. What do you want me to call you? Is it Kenny, Kendrick?
You can call me Kenny, it don't matter.
Okay, I'm Ryan. Very nice to meet you.
Man. Look like we would have met on the court.
Yeah, a little bit.
I would have had to guard you.
Okay.
I want to thank you, man, you know, for everything you've done.
Just knowing what you had to go through and where you've been because things didn't work out the way they should have is really just a terrible reminder of the justice system doesn't always get it right.
Two people looked out through prison bars. One seen the mud, the other seen the stars. My name is Kendrick Morris. When I was younger, I was about 24. I was in the street. I got into it with some guys across town. A couple weeks later, or maybe a month later, they found out where we hung at. I come over, and the uncle was like, "Hey man, the one guy's over there came over here looking for y'all. You know what I mean? It ain't too safe to be over here." And I was like, "Thanks, bet, I'm gone." So I leave, and sure enough, the next day, some guys pull up. I think there was like 3-4 deep. They said they rode past the house to make sure it was the house, and then they rode back past, and they stopped and they got out, and they shot the house up. A little 13-year-old girl got shot in her back, little Tia, like my little niece. When they shot up, they sprayed up the house, she was just coming to the door. And I guess she seen the guys coming to the door with guns, and she turned around and ran, and the guys kept shooting. And she got shot in her back, and she got shot through her legs. Yeah, she almost died. I felt guilty, and you know, like, it was our fault that the house got shot up. The first thing she told the detective was, I was shot because of Kenny Mack and them. Not they did it, I was shot because of them. When he started talking to her, coming to her in the hospital, he started showing her pictures of us. And the dudes had on hoods and masks. He's showing her a picture of me like 2 years, from 2 years prior with a hood on. And he's asking her suggestive questions like, do you know these guys? And she's like, yeah, I know them. You know, can you identify anybody in these photographs? Yeah, him, and him. Because she knows us. He kind of turned everything around. And it went from the house got shot up because of Kenny Mack to Kenny Mack shot up the house.
So up until DNA testing, few would believe how many wrongs occurred in the system. And up till cell phone videos, no one wanted to believe that your hero was a bad guy. It's much more comfortable to believe we have guilty people in prison and that the police don't make mistakes and or do intentional acts that thwart justice.
You know, we weren't saints, but you know, we was in the streets hustling or whatever. And detective, you know, when you're in that lifestyle, he's an adversary. So when he got his opportunity, he pounced. Like I said, he put the twist on things. A lot of people know we didn't do it. At the time, I'm at a party. I'm at my little godson's party at the time. About 4 or 5 witnesses that was at the birthday party show up in my defense, you know, testifying that I was at the party at the time with pictures of me at the party. And then on top of that, it was a state witness that testified. She testified that the dudes had on hoods and masks. And when the prosecutor was like, well, why did you make an out-of-court statement saying it was these 3 individuals? She blatantly said in court, because that detective right there told me it was them. And all I needed to do was say it was them and help Tia. So I'm not knowing about trial, so I'm like, you know, people making noise in the courtroom, the judge hitting the gavel. I'm thinking they about to lock the detective up, case over with, like the movies. But no, they kept going. As they read the verdict, they found us guilty.
Then sentenced to what amounted to 60 years.
Yeah, I was confused about what happened and how this happened. We know we didn't do this, so how did this happen? So now you're looking at the paperwork, and I can see the paperwork clearly. I see the discrepancies. I start working, trying to work my way out from day one. Every year I'm fighting to get out. Every year I got something in court. So I didn't do it straight 20 years. I did it a year at a time.
I like those shoes too,
Thank
man.
you, man. Thank you.
You're looking good.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
When you're going through that process one year at a time, and you had a lot of setbacks, like on the legal side of things. How do you rationalize that? How do you go through that?
I'm blessed with the gift of optimism. I don't stew in the problem. I'm more like to fixate on the solution.
Right.
One day I'm talking to one of the uncles, and he said, "Man, I talked to Tia." She said, "Uncle, I already know they didn't do it. I always knew something was wrong." And she was like, "But I wasn't old enough." And she was like, "Now that I'm old enough, I've been talking to my grandmother about it." And she was like, "We're trying to figure out what can we do to help them." So when I heard that, I was ecstatic, like, wow.
Wrongful conviction work is post-conviction work.
I get a visit, an attorney visit, and she was like, "My name's Fran Watson, I run the wrongful conviction clinic." And she was like, "You got a friend."
I recall spending a fair amount of time trying to say to him, "I will fight for you, but you've already had a number of bites of the apple, and you mustn't get false hope just because I've come to visit you." Probably the brightest moment in terms of that light bulb was Tierra McGinty's recantation. Without her willingness to do the right thing and step forward and say, "I lied," when I pointed to him before the jury and said, "I can identify him as the shooter," it was very strong evidence, I thought, in favor of vacating the conviction.
We got a new court date. They got a PC2, which is newly discovered evidence. Tia coming forward.
She gave her testimony. She told the truth. She was clear, precise, detailed.
And she said, "I was just 13 years old. I was doing what I was told." She was like, "This detective told us it was them, and we believed him." She's been in prison too, living with this secret.
I was confident we had presented facts which should warrant a new trial.
And then they denied it. Even when it got denied, I think the best thing about that was when Tia came forward and testified. My father got to see it, my mother, and my family got to see it. That was victory right there to me.
Right. The problem that we have is, in the way the law's set up, is it's like you had your one trial, and now we're not going to relitigate the facts. It's like this one time these people said guilty, and we're not going to ever revisit that. Was there a procedural error? Was there a legal error? But no one ever talks about if there's a factual error.
Exactly. Right.
You sat through those hearings, and you even had someone come in and say, "Yeah, he didn't do it." And the judge is like, "That's great, but that's not why we're here. What we're here is for these procedural issues. We're more concerned about the process than the result."
Obviously, it's not what you know, so it got to be who you know. I reached out to Pastor Green because I used to be sitting in my cell and I used to watch these church services.
Jesus goes to see a man in the midst of his darkness. Maybe that's somebody's testimony that's watching me right now.
I heard from Kenny Mack via a letter he sent to me. He had saw our ministry on television, and he reached out to share about his particular situation. He told me about of Dr. Fran Watson, who was working on it from the wrongful conviction clinic, and provided me her number to confirm his story.
We talking, and he was like, how long you been locked up now? And I was like, 19 years, about to be 20 years. And he like, "It's time to get you home." And he was like, "So who?" I said, "They got a new prosecutor, Ryan Mears." He was like, "Ryan Mears?" He said, "I think I know him." He's like, "I think I got his email." So he said, "Let me email him."
Kenny has sent me a letter that one of the people who was with him had gotten released. And so I started deciding, now wait a minute, how do you release the one guy and not deal with Kenny's situation? And so I took and reached out to Ryan Mears and said, "Hey, Ryan, you really need to check into this."
I read about your case, and I was like, let me take a closer look at this. So I actually ordered the file, and I went through the file myself.
And what stood out to you about it?
I didn't like the transcript. There were parts of the transcript that bothered me and concerned me, and there were some things to me as a prosecutor, and I've also been a defense attorney, that I felt like maybe could have been made a little bit more clear to the jury. But then I got a chance to meet with the witness, and we just sat down in this conference room and talked. And she was so sincere and just so devastated by what had happened. If she was lying to me, give her an Academy Award.
I'm coming from breakfast one morning, and I just got through reading the Bible, and I put it down, and I was in the mirror, and a CO, a correction officer, walked past, and I thought she was doing the head count, and then she walked past, she doubled back, and she was like, "You been praying?" And I said, "Yeah." And she was like, "Well, pack your stuff, you out of here, immediate release." And you flexed it, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I appreciate you even being willing to come in here and talk. I'd be mad at everybody.
No. Because like I said, it's about perspective.
Yeah.
How you look at things. You can look at it as half full, half empty. But in reality, it's always half full.
Were you ever close to breaking in there?
I probably almost went crazy twice. I'm gonna say I almost went crazy about twice.
That's pretty good, over 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, I've been so fortunate and blessed.
You realize you just spent 20 years in jail for a crime you didn't commit. So
Yes.
to hear you say you're fortunate and blessed, your perspective is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, but truly blessed. Even just to come home and have all my faculties in my mind,
Right.
intact, is truly a blessing. And just to have the support and the friends around me to where I tell my homeowner now, my landlord now, I'm like, I don't even know what I would do or where I would be, you know what I mean, right now, if it wasn't for you. And it's just the people like that, like you.
What did you want to see from the justice system? I mean, you're going through this and you're hearing no. It wasn't just no once, it was no 20 times.
Yeah.
What did you want to see from the justice system?
Looking at a whole bunch of wrongful convictions and studying that stuff, that seems like the average time when like a person to do it, average of 20 years before,
Right.
They can either get exonerated, anything.
You got to have a process for those people to take advantage of. You have to have, quote unquote, a wrongful conviction clinic of some sort. You need resources in the prosecutor's office to go and revisit those things. You need judges that will be open.
Yeah, it's a lot, but it can be done though. It can be done. And it wouldn't even take a whole lot of resources, just take shuffling around some things.
Would you be willing to speak to our prosecutors?
Of course.
I can't put into words how this feels to me, sitting with you, knowing that you've been wronged, and you're still willing to sit with someone who's a part of the system and have an honest conversation about it. And there's no other word to say but grace.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you and everything you're doing, man. I appreciate you just as a human being, real talk.
I appreciate you saying that. How old are you now?
44.
44? Okay.
Yeah. 44, yeah.
Man, you don't look a day over 35.
My man. Everybody says that once you say stuff like that, I gotta get you lunch.